trying to finalize their board, shake everything out, decide who's the top quarterback, top running back, top wide receiver. And, let's just be honest. Every day at the Draft Network is a good day. So this is going to be a great show. And we're going to start this thing off by talking about one of the players, one of the bigger name players in one of the smallest frames possible. And I'm talking about Alabama quarterback Bryce Young. This is a player, you guys, we watched him win a Heisman Trophy. We saw him do his thing for 2 seasons at Alabama. We saw him answer questions coming in. A lot of people thought he'd be 5'8", 5'9". He comes in at 5'10", over 200 pounds. We're not worried about where the weight came from. He checked those boxes. Yet every time that I look up, I see people moving Bryce Young down the ranks and saying that he's not going to be able to succeed at the NFL level. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys because you all have done the work. You've scouted the prospect. You know the player. So talk about Bryce Young and where we have him right now. DP, I want to start with you. Just talk about the pros that Bryce Young brings to the table.
Poise, man, leadership. Like he's cool, calm, and collected under pressure. An improviser at the quarterback position. We've for months, Ray. We've talked about it. Me and Keith, especially, call him Chris Paul. Like he's a point guard, right? He distributes the ball to his playmakers, does it with accuracy, ball placement, and a guy that can create on his own and give you something off script. And that's kind of where he thrives. So for me, Bryce Young, you know what you're getting with him. And the word I would kind of throw out there is that the size isn't, but his game is safe.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll parlay off of that, DP. I think it's more than that, right? Like, we got to give this guy credit for what he's done in the SEC at the end of the day, man. This guy's a straight-out baller. Ray, you kind of said he is a Heisman winner. Man, he's a Heisman winner, right? Like, I'm saying it with my chest, man. He came in here, he did his thing for 2 years at 5'10", less than 200 pounds, and guess what? We've seen him go against the best of the best when you're talking about the Floridas, you're talking about the LSUs, you're talking about this vaunted Georgia defense, right? Like, he came in.
Say it louder.
Yeah, he came in and he balled out, man. So I want to give him his credit for what he did. And when you talk about the prospect, right? The prospect is a high IQ football player. The prospect is a guy that's accurate with the football. The prospect is someone that can identify free blitzers, that understands protections, that understand coverages, and he can get the ball to the open wide receiver, and he can also throw his wide receiver open. So I'm on more on the side, Ray, to where this guy's a straight baller for me, man. I understand that there's height and weight concerns, but the guy can simply play football, and I'll take this over the 6'5", 250-pound quarterback that can't hit the broadside of a barn. Give me this guy because I think he's a baller.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you look at Bryce Young, and everyone's talking about the size concerns. And is there another conference in college football that's close to the NFL and the SEC? Because if there is one, let me know, folks. You know what I mean? And I think you look at the guys that he's got up front. He didn't have an Evan Neal up front this year. Didn't have a Jamison Williams or a John Mechie on the outside. Yeah. Jahmyr Gibbs was his top target. You watch him just play. I think he just the old eye test. We get into so much stuff as size, analytics. Just watch the football player. Watch him play. And I think you watch the biggest thing for me that's not even talked about too much is his ability both inside his structure and outside his structure to throw receivers open, which I saw a lot this year because the guys on the outside, he's not at Ohio State where he's got 5 stars everywhere. This year, like I mentioned earlier, didn't have a Jerry Jeudy or Devonta Smith or Jalen Waller running routes for him. His ability to consistently create windows that he may have to do at a Houston or an Indianapolis or Carolina moving into the next 2 years. So looking at the little things that he offers away from him being 5'10" and playing at 185, 90 pounds is beyond that. I think Bryce Young's a baller, and he is QB1.
Well, Keith, real quick, Keith, we're talking about Bama, right? We're talking about Bama. When is the last time over the last couple of years that we're not talking about an Alabama wide receiver being drafted in the first round or the second round of the NFL draft? I mean, and I just want to set the scene for you, Keith, DP, the people out there watching. I'm going to go back. to a game in 2021, and I'm going to just let you know what happened in that game. With 1 minute and 18 seconds left, 3rd and 10 at the Alabama 3, Bryce Young completes a 22-yard pass to John Mechie, all right? They get down again, 3rd and 7 at the Auburn 42 with 43 seconds left. Bryce Young throws an incomplete pass. They were down at this point. It's 4th and 7. It's 4th and 7 with 38 seconds left, and Bryce Young completes a pass to Jaleel Billingsley for 14 yards to pick up the first down. Incomplete pass on first, incomplete pass on 2nd down, and with 24 seconds left versus Auburn in a game where they had to get it, 28-yard pass to Ja'Cory Brooks, touchdown, Bryce Young. When you're talking about ice water in your veins, moment right now, I got goosebumps right now because I was listen, man, I'm on the plane flying home watching this on the airplane with a bunch of Bama fans, and I was like, ain't no shot he's going to win this game. And boom, 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 get it to overtime, get it done, Bryce Young. I mean, this is the type of player that we're talking about right now, not succeeding at the NFL level. We talk about all the good stuff, Keith. What else you got?
Yeah, nah. So I'm gonna flip it on this coin, right? Let's talk about what the I guess the detractors want to say, right? And it's like, man, he's too small and he's going to get hurt. But I mean, injury, when you're kind of projecting that on a prospect that doesn't have a history of being injured, in a sense, that's a cop-out to me at the end of the day, right? Because you're projecting it like Carson Wentz is 6'4", 200 plus pounds, and he tore his ACL on a quarterback sneak on the goal line, right? So we can't project those things as far as injuries. Tom Brady tore his ACL standing in the pocket. So when you're talking about a prospect is going to be injured, you can say that about all 260 guys that will be drafted this year. We cannot project torn ACLs or rib cartilage or anything like that. All you can do, man, is cut on the tape and see how that guy negotiates what he does playing at that size. And I'll tell you this, and this is what I always said about small guys. Man, they've been small their entire life, right? So they've been playing that football, the football game from that size. He's always been 5'10", right? He's always been undersized. And before he was at Alabama, you know where he was? He was at Mater Dei. Mater Dei doesn't play no chump schedule. They play the best of the best high school football against the best of the best opponents. So this is a guy that's consistently been around the big lights and big moments. So for me, Bryce Young's a flat out competitor. And, you know, the injury concerns, while they're warranted, that's a very tough thing to throw into the evaluation.
Yeah, I'll jump in, Keith, and I agree. Like, you know, the main thing for him, like you said, injuries is we can't predict those. So we need to leave that out of the conversation of, man, he's going to get hurt. Like, nah, you can't really say that about you can't say that anybody's going to get hurt. Like, yeah, you're going to be banged up, but trying to predict the injuries is tough. And it's not something that I really rock with personally. I think that the fear for a lot of people is he thrives so much off structure and out of the pocket, where we know in the NFL, you're not protected once you get out of a certain range. Like you know what I mean? You can take the bigger hits. Even though you're a quarterback, you cross that line of scrimmage, you become a runner, you're free game for these linebackers to tee off. And we know that's how the NFL works. So that will always be a concern, that he thrives so much off script. And when it comes down to his size, the height is more so kind of the main issue for me. Is like, you see him get the deep drops in the pocket, right? What is that going to, what's the downside to that in the NFL, guys? You're stressing your tackles because their job is to protect the outside shoulder. But if you're dropping too far back, now you're out leveraging them with the pass rushers. You're helping the pass rusher out leverage your tackle. So him playing closer and get a little bit, like, instead of deeper, get a little bit closer in the pocket and knowing how to navigate it consistently, which he does a good job of. He's not somebody that gets stuck in the pocket, but that deep drop, right, to see over those 6'4", 6'5" interior defensive lines, that's a real thing. So it's like, okay, Drew Brees didn't get super deep. Drew Brees was just on his toes, and he know how to navigate and find windows. That's going to be the task for Bryce, is being able to play, like, not. You can still play out of structure, guys. I'm not saying that he can't, but you're going to have to be calculated risks, because when you get out of the structure, when you get out of the protection of the offensive line, that becomes a risk when you start moving. No matter if you're 250 or 195 pounds, that's just a risk, right? We've seen Cam Newton take a beating in his career as a runner, and the refs didn't protect him. But when you're in the pocket, yes. So that's my main thing, is Bryce is going to have to be as calculated as possible when it comes on to playing off structure and playing off script, so he can remove himself from taking unnecessary hits that will eventually pile up on him.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and what makes this process so fun, guys, is focusing on every single individual's game and what you can project and what ultimately translates. And Keith, you said it perfectly, as far as people trying to find outliers that may or may not exist when it comes to whether we're looking at a quarterback and a face of the franchise or we're looking at a potential Y tight end too, right? But you have to find the certain things that translate and project to the next level. And there's so much about Bryce's game from modern day in high school to Alabama, to winning a Heisman, to the success that he had this year from not having the greatest surroundings that he had in 2021, to then coming to an NFL team and being that QB1. So it's what makes it fun. It's what makes it hard sometimes to project these guys to where Bryce is going to have to be an outlier his entire career. But end of the day, just turn on the tape and watch the kid play.
So we've heard a lot of concerns, right? There are concerns over the size. There are What I want to ask you guys, give me some weaknesses. I don't care. I don't want to hear about what he could get hurt, injury, all this. What are his weaknesses? We talk about the pros, the ice sweater in his veins, the ability to deliver the ball in all quadrants of the field, supreme accuracy. What are Bryce Young's weaknesses? If you draft this kid, if any NFL team drafts him outside of size, what are the glaring weaknesses that he possesses, and why is he not considered after everything that he's put on wax in the SEC? How did CJ Stroud jump him? You're going to tell me if you're saying that CJ Stroud is the better quarterback, fine. But if you're going to say, look at what he did at the combine throwing, and that's why he's ahead of Bryce Young, I need y'all to tell me. The people need to know what are his weaknesses, and why are we not talking about him as the consensus top pick in the NFL draft?
Yeah, I think just real quick, Keith. Yeah, I just want to talk about mechanically. These are very, very small things with Bryce, but we know doesn't have the big arm that CJ does or Anthony does. He's not going to sling it 50, 60 yards downfield and drop it into a friggin' bucket, right? He's not going to be able to do that. But things with him, he's got a super compact release, but I want to see him engage his core in his lower half more. He's not the biggest guy in the world. Him being able to generate just a little bit more velocity on throws. I'm going to take you back to a baseball reference, and you watch a baseball showcase. They align guys at the 6-hole shortstop, and they don't want to see the ball falling at the first baseman. They want to see it flying through the first baseman's chest. You translate that to the NFL. You're targeting outside the hashes. You're targeting outside the numbers, a quick outside route, right? You want that ball to drive through the receiver's chest. And what I want Bryce Young to do moving forward is mechanically engage his legs and his lower half. You engage your lower half and you engage that core. You don't have to be 6'5", guys. You don't have to be able to rip the ball. So with Bryce, it's little things for me as far as mechanically to generate more velocity on his throws, which is not just going to be able to expand a defense horizontally, but also vertically as well as he move forward and he gets more weapons around him at the NFL level.
Yeah, and I mean that's fixable, right? Like we're talking about a weakness. That's not a weakness. That's a thing to improve on, right? And that's minus, and that's critiquing, and that's every quarterback that we could have went through for the past 30 years, right? Somebody has something mechanically that we can work on. And Ray, I know that you're like, okay, well, what is the glaring thing? There is no glaring thing, right? Like he's just small. That's why for the past 2 years, that's what's been the discourse around Bryce Young, is that, man, this guy is small. And like you said, man, we go through our process and we'll be completely honest. So when I watch Bryce Young and I watch him, I say, man, this guy is small. Does it scare the hell out of me? Yes. But then I continue to watch the film and I'm like, man, this guy can flat out ball. So you have to give him credit both ways. And I think, like Ryan, he did a really good job of outlining, his lower half mechanics. But man, we have so many quarterback coaches and gurus and the best of the best that can work with these guys in the offseason to improve, the minor details of a quarterback's game.
And that's something that he's going to have to do for himself. You know what I mean? An NFL team's not employing those guys for him. He's going to have to be the guy to say, listen, it's self-awareness, right? Like being self-aware to know that my mechanics in my lower body take some of the zip off the ball. Now, I will say I'm not overly wild by his arm. Like I've told y'all this before. Like I do have concerns about his arm talent in terms of, like you said, Ryan, driving those outside routes, right? Those outbreakers. In the NFL, those are pick sixes. You got to be able to zip that bad boy in there quickly and with optimal velocity. Because if you're late, if it doesn't have enough power behind it, those DBs are driving. And the NFL, like, yes, I get it. He played in the SEC. We've seen a lot of SEC quarterbacks fail, in the NFL. So, like, yes, he's playing the SEC, but at the same time, that's not the NFL. So when you get these guys who are more instinctually, like, superior, right? Not 17, 18, and 19-year-old kids, but they're a 25-year-old, 5-year veteran who's studied the tape and know that he doesn't have the optimal arm, or they kind of read those talking to corners, the first thing they always talk about is like, yeah, we watch the receivers, but we also watch the quarterback for his telltales of when he's going to throw. So it's like once they kind of pick up how his body moves and how he gets himself aligned to know, okay, he's going to get it, he's about to get it out now, they can drive on, they can jump those routes. And if it's not strong enough to get there, I believe his arm is good enough, guys. I don't think he has a weak arm or anything like that. It's good enough, but his arm talent is somewhat of a concern for me. And when he's on the move, right? He's on the move. He's trying to throw off platform, especially deeper, 20 yards down the field. Like I feel like that the ball starts to die on him. And it's like that's a problem. Because like, okay, you're going to get pressure. They're going to be free runners that's going to flush you. Not just you being able to navigate, but guys is going to come off backside, right? Off your blind side, fire zone blitzes, different things like that, where you're going to have to move and move the launch point yourself. And if you're moving it and you don't get a chance to set your feet, right? He's got to be able to get it out. And he's got, like you said, quick release, compact. But there's going to be a telltale. There's going to be a sign to show like, all right, the ball's not going to have the same type of velocity as someone else that some of the other guys we've seen. So I think that's a big thing in terms of his deep ball. Like I think he, and Ray, you may have remembered me using this term before, he's an anticipatory deep ball thrower, right? Like he's not one of those guys that's just going to drop back and just going to rock it there. Like, you know what I mean? Where bodies are around my feet and I can generate it 60, 70 yards without problem. That's not Bryce. So the ball is going to, what he does is he wants to get it out like typically mid-stem, right? Throw his guy to that spot. Kind of, he's not Tua Tagovailoa arm. I think his arm is better than Tua's, but it's very much similar in terms of we're going to get the ball out there, let our guy go get it. And that's, like I said, those are the main things with him. And then, of course, for me, just playing within structure. In the NFL, like you're going to have to make plays consistently and routinely within structure. And he thrives so much off chaos, so much off making the off structure, the secondary throws, making those plays when it matters most in structure is going to be big for him because there's a little bit of, I would say, and there's stuff that can be fixed, but discipline in the pocket, discipline in the pocket. So,
well, let me ask you all this: one word answers. I just want to know, Ryan. I'm gonna start with you. Bryce Young is QB what in this class?
It's QB1.
DP?
QB1.
2.
Keith?
1.
All right, there you have it, Bryce Young, and I'll just throw mine in there to split the tie. I got him at 2 as well. I got him as 2 as well. I got him at 2 as well. But let's stick with Alabama and let's talk about Bryce Young's best receiving option this year, which is not a wide receiver. It was his running back, Jahmyr Gibbs. I want to talk about this dynamic running back, and I think at this point of the process, we all can agree that Bijan Robinson is the RB1 in this class. Okay, I want to ask you all this, and I want to take the Jahmyr Gibbs conversation a different direction because we like the player, we like the skill set, we like the talent. Is Jahmyr Gibbs closer to Bijan Robinson in RB1 than the RB3, whomever that may be? I don't know who it is. Is it A-Chain? Is it Charbonnet? Is it Kendre Miller? I don't know who RB3 is. Tajay Spears. Closer than RB3 is to RB2. And I want to talk about that. So is whoever is 3, whoever your 3 is, are they closer to Jahmyr Gibbs or is Jahmyr Gibbs a little closer to Bijan Robinson? Because when I watch this player and I see Austin Eckler and Tony Pollard and some of these players who aren't commanding 25 carries up the A-gap per game, and they're able to use their dynamism and their dynamic athleticism to threaten defenses. And I always say this, Keith. I always say this. There's a difference between a running back who can catch passes and a running back who can be deployed as a pass-catching weapon. In my opinion, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is a pass-catching weapon. So, Keith, talk to me about just what you think the outlook, the realistic outlook for this player whom never really commanded a full bell cow workload in the traditional sense of that word, but what we expect an NFL team to be getting with Jahmyr Gibbs here in the next couple of months.
Yeah, this is a guy that in the SEC his first year, man, he ran for over 900 yards rushing and 400 plus yards receiving, right? And you went through the outline, you know, you're talking about Texas, right? 9 receptions for 74 yards, like he was the engine that allowed them to win against Texas. And he did it as a receiver. I think that's the outlook, right? When you talk about, is he closer to running back, 1 or closer to running back 3? he's closer to Bijan Robinson, man. Like this is elite level talent, but I want people to change the lens of how they're looking at this as far as a running back. This is an offensive weapon. That's what I want you to understand. This is an offensive weapon. This is a guy that, yes, he can play true running back for you, but this guy will be your third wide receiver on the field, right? Like this is your third best wide receiver. He can line in the slot. He can line outside. This is a guy that's comfortable running routes. And I'm not just saying running routes to get through them. I'm talking about a guy that can run routes with effectiveness, with precision, that can catch those heaters, right? The quarterback doesn't have to take anything off the ball when he's throwing it to Jahmyr Gibbs. He can actually throw the football to Jahmyr Gibbs, so he changes things, man. Now you have to worry about, okay, cool. Am I going to run a linebacker out there out wide with Jahmyr Gibbs, or am I going to have to put a cornerback? If I put a cornerback on Jahmyr Gibbs, now I have a linebacker on my slot wide receiver. So I look at it, Ray. I'm like, listen, man. NFL teams want to let this guy fall. He falls to the back end of the first round and he goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. Good luck. And it's y'all fault that he's at that point. And if they win another Super Bowl, that's totally on them because, man, this guy is underrated as a football player, man.
Yeah, I think
Keith,
he fits.
Oh,
Yeah,
go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, he just fits, right? He just fits what the NFL wants to do from an offensive point of view. I mean, you look at defenses across the league. I think you look at the New York Giants and Wink Martindale sometimes put 7 DBs, eight DBs sometimes on the field to counter the offensive weapons and the offensive chess pieces that the NFL has nowadays. And Jahmyr Gibbs fits that. And for me, he's closer to Bijan Robinson than he is my RB3, which is Zach Charbonnet for my board. So for me, he's right there with Bijan. Bijan's RB1. He's got a little bit ahead of him. But for Jahmyr and what he does on all 3 downs, I'm not asking him to run inside the tackles and create inside that 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 hole. I'm not asking him to do that 20 times a game. I'm asking him to create outside the tackles, provide some juice. And if you want him to go inside the tackles, then give him some workload and some snaps to do that because he didn't do it a ton at Georgia Tech or at Alabama. But for someone that is an offensive chess piece, a weapon that you can put in the slot, you can put outside, you can put in the backfield. You want to run some pony personnel and put 2 running backs in the backfield at one time. He goes to Kansas City. You saw what they did last year in the Super Bowl, especially in the second half with Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco. You get Isaiah Pacheco and Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield at the same time. Keith, like you said, I'm going to steal what you said.
Good luck. I like it.
No, for me, like, I agree with both these guys, but I'm gonna throw out a name, like, because Ryan, you said, do you have to run them 25 times up the A gap? No, you don't. But this dude can run up the A gap. Like, people really dismiss the it doesn't take, you don't have to be only physical to run between the A gaps,
Yep.
right? Like, if you're running between the 8, the 1, the 0, 1, all that type of stuff, you're running up the middle. You need to have patience, vision, and footwork to be able to exchange gaps because things can get chaotic in there, right? That's why a lot of teams it's a lot easier to find zone runners, right? One cut guys that you could press one direction, then get north and south. Yeah, Gibbs can do that too, but he also has the footwork and ability to work in chaotic tight spaces. But to the point, for me, I think about a guy like Jamal Charles, right? Was never 215, 20 pounds, lightning quick, fast, right? Can catch the ball out of the backfield. You put that skill set, right, in the body or in the mold of a Alvin Kamara in terms of the receiving skill set, the Christian McCaffrey receiving skill set, and then you're going to get a guy similar to what we have in Jahmyr Gibbs. So to answer that question, Ray, I'm not sure who RB3 is, but I believe there's a big cliff. You know what I mean? After RB2. Right. Like, there's a cliff, man. You know what I mean? So for me, I view RB2 as it's Jahmyr Gibbs. It's Bijan Jahmyr. I think he's closer to Bijan. The RB3 and 4 they're not even the same neighborhood. They're in a whole different state. You know, in a whole different country.
Let me play this game with y'all. Let me play this game with y'all. How would you feel if you were an NFL team picking and you needed that running back and you passed on Jahmyr Gibbs for Zach Charbonnet? Would you feel good about that? Like, as scouts, is there, I'm seeing DP's looking at me crazy. Ryan's like, no. Okay. Let me give you another name. Zach Evans.
No.
Okay. I'm going down the road. Hold on. I got one more, Ryan. Tajay Spears.
This is where the NFL gets cute, though.
Right. This is where
they can get a guy with something else.
Let me throw Spears out there. Tajay Spears. You don't get Gibbs, but you land a Spears maybe in the 3rd, maybe in the middle of the 3rd. Are you okay with that?
No. I'm still not.
I love Spears, but the receiving skill set is so
the point of what I'm saying is you all believe that this player is that special, is that talented to where there is no replacement. There is no, if you miss out, there's a difference, right? Say Gibbs and Bijan are off the board. You can kind of be like, you know what? I don't have to take Charbonnet. I can get a Spears. I don't have to take Tank. I can get Kendra. I don't have to take this. I can get Chase Brown. But what you all are saying right now, based on the work that you've done, Jahmyr Gibbs is deserving to be like, no, you get a shot to get him, you take him. And that's how good of a player he is.
Yes, I agree. And it's because I talked about the passing game and then DP talked about the rushing, right? And the guy does both at a high level. Like we're talking about a guy that against Arkansas, he went for 206 on the ground. Then he followed that up against Tennessee with 100+ yards. Then he, Texas A&M, man, like, you know, the quarterback was injured. Bryce Young was injured. He went for 150 and carried that offense. So you're talking about a guy that if they put the ball in his hands, he can tote the rock. He can run the football like DP said, man. He can run gap. He can run power. He can run zone. He can do it all. And then on third downs, you can just split him out at wide receiver. Like, I'm not sure how many running backs we've seen with this type of special skill set. And I know everybody's going to talk about running backs because you say, hey, you're going to need someone to partner with Jahmyr Gibbs. Well, that's the way the NFL is regardless, right? How many bell cow running backs are there in the NFL? There aren't any. If you have Christian McCaffrey, you're still saying what? We need a number 2. If you have Alvin Kamara, we still need a number 2. So Saquon Barkley, right, is the conversation about to change to, man, get him some help, get him a break. He needs a spell running back. So you're going to have a number 2 regardless. So I would spend, man, Jahmyr Gibbs, give me Jahmyr Gibbs all day. He will remain a top 10 prospect in this draft for me.
Yeah, I think he's coming also from just a history of the NFL. He's coming to the NFL at the right time. And Damian, It's funny with your comparison to Jamal Charles. Who drafted Jamal Charles? Kansas City Chiefs in the 3rd round. So you look at that type of thing. Look at Jahmyr Gibbs, and he's not a Sean Alexander, these kind of bigger Fred Taylor type of back in the years past. He's come into the NFL in the draft at the perfect time because you're forcing all 11 athletes on defense to cover every single yard on defense, horizontally and vertically. And that's what Jahmyr Gibbs does. He doesn't just expand a defense right horizontally, but he can expand it vertically and also expand your personnel packages to where if you don't have great receivers, you don't have great tight ends, if you don't have an elite RB1, if you want him to be a guy that's complementary in your backfield, if your quarterback is limited from a mobility perspective, he's more of an office chair on carpet in the pocket, just kind of stand there, isn't mobile. You have a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs in your offense that can do a lot of different things for you, not just wear multiple hats, but wear them well. That is someone that you expend a late day 1 or early day 2 pick on.
He's a game changer. Simple as that.
Simple as that. And I'm going to ask you, and I'm just going to ask one of you, Keith. I just want your opinion. Ryan, you touched on something very important, and DP, you said it too, about the size and the player. And I just want to ask, from a philosophical standpoint, is the NFL changing a little bit as well? We're not living in the days where you see 2 middle linebackers sitting at 250 pounds plugging up the middle. We're at a spot now in the draft where we might see a defensive tackle that's 280 pounds get drafted in the 1st round, right? The game is changing and evolving to where you don't see a lot of running backs that look like Derrick Henry. You don't see a lot of wide receivers that look like Calvin Johnson did years ago, and everyone's looking for some big, enormous outside X receiver. Just Keith, very briefly, because I want to get to our favorite segment of this show, Pound the Table. But do you think those philosophical changes of just player body types in the NFL, like sort of, we should be taking that into consideration when we're talking about, such and such can't carry the ball up the middle because he's too small? Well, hell, I'm looking at some teams that got 220-pound middle linebackers. So just philosophically, is the game evolving to where maybe this is built on speed? I look at a Noah Sewell, he would have been like a top 5 pick 10 years ago. And now teams are like, you know what? He can't play in space. I don't know. So just Keith, really quickly, just the game today compared to what it was 5, 10, 15 years ago, it's a different game, man.
Yeah, and I'll talk about it specifically offensively looking at the defense, right? Like I feel like in the past, it was about beating a defense, right? It was about beating cover 3, beating cover 4. Now it's about beating that one player, right? It's about drawing up a play that's creating a one-on-one matchup where my best player is against the worst player on defense. And that's the value in Jahmyr Gibbs, right? If I can come up with a trip set or some type of bunch set or 2x2, however it may come, and I can design something to where I know the defense to where this linebacker is going to be on Jahmyr Gibbs, you're in trouble. And you're starting to see that these offensive minds, when you talk about the Sean McVays and the Shanahans, man, they're designing things to where it's literally one-on-ones, right? I'm putting all these other pieces out there as far as these skill positions just to get this one player open. When you talked about the playoff game, and I think it was Brock Purdy, and it was a play design where Christian McCaffrey came across the offensive set in motion, right? And he was third in a bunch set, 2 people released, and then it was just a simple pass to Christian McCaffrey. That play was just designed just for Christian McCaffrey. So I think it's becoming simplistic in the sense of the fact of this is nothing but one-on-one matchups. Get my guy versus your guy, and my guy will make your guy miss an open field.
And I lied. DP, I can't. Ryan, I'm coming to you. You just wait there, Ryan, because I got something for you, Ryan Fowler. DP, just really quickly, the NFL game today and why some of these smaller players can find success. Do you believe that there is sort of a shift in what players we're seeing play in the NFL today?
Yeah, Ray, I do. It's more of a track meet now. I remember a coach saying that the NFL is about 3 to 5 years behind college football offensively, but they're 5 to 7, possibly even 10 years behind high school football, and that's how the game evolves. That's when the NFL really starts to see more spread sets and things like that. So I think it's just being more of a space game, right? And just playing as a track meet. You got to catch us. You got to catch our guys. Simple as that.
Well, speaking of track and catch our guys and players being small and the game changing, we move on to my favorite segment that we do at the Draft Network, Pound the Table, because you guys get an opportunity to kind of put your other co-host on blast, right? Got him too low, this player's too high, but you get to pound the table for somebody that you really believe is a good player and is going to find some success at the next level. And Ryan, I want to start with you. And it's almost a carry forward of the conversation that we just had, because the player that you want to pound the table for, he's not 6'4", he's not 200 pounds. He's a smaller wide receiver. So talk to the people. Let us know who you want to pound the table for and why.
Look, what I'm pounding the table for is Mr. Nathaniel Tank Dell, wide receiver from Houston. The name of the game, bottom line, is separation. Your ability to create separation at every single level of the defense. And you watch Tank at Houston. If you want to just look at him and say, oh, he's too small, he's not for me, that's fine. We had that same conversation with Devontae Smith, and I think he's doing just fine in Philadelphia, even when A.J. Brown wasn't there, right? You look at Tank Dell, you watch him down at Houston with Clayton Tune, and you watch him at the Senior Bowl in a neutral environment against the quarterbacks that really didn't help him out much that week. You microscope him and what he projects to an NFL offense. You always need guys that can create separation. Is he going to be a guy on the outside that's going to blow up a 33-inch arm corner and on a screen or in a run game? No. But somebody move inside the slot and get him on designated touches. You can put him in the backfield to get an orbit motion, jet motion if you have to. Allow those man zone indicators for your quarterback and allow him to just create on the outside. Again, separation, separation, separation. He plays much bigger than his frame. I love smaller guys that play bigger. You hate bigger guys that play small, and you watch Tank and you turn on the tape and you watch him dominate. He can separate as good as anybody in this class, and really over the last few years, in my honest opinion. I love Tank Dell's game, and I'm absolutely not getting cute. He's an early day 2 guy on my board.
Ryan, I'm just gonna push back on you a little bit, okay? I'm just gonna tell you what the people. This is what the streets are saying. I ain't saying it. I got to see him up close and personal. I'm not saying this. He's slow. He's small, and he ran a 4.5. That's not fast enough. That's not gonna cut it at the next level. You see Tutu Atwell. Have you seen Dree Archer? Have you seen all these other little guys? I'm just being. This is what I'm just the messenger, Ryan Fowler. You talk to the people who say 4.49 is too slow. He's not going to be able to do that. He's not even Tutu Atwell. How on earth could you say that this player could be a day 2 pick, early day 2 pick in the draft?
That's disrespectful to Tank, bottom line. You got to turn on the tape and watch the kid. But have you heard Tyler Lockett? Nobody ever heard of Devonta Smith, Marvin Harrison. Those are smaller guys too. Again, you look at I'm not going to put too much stock into a 40. The guy's not running 4.5. Guys aren't running 4.6. I think we turn on the tape and watch the combine. There were a lot of guys we had questions with as far as what exactly their 40 time was in Indianapolis. But I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, he didn't run a 40. I'm going to move him down my boards. I turn on the tape and I watch the young man play football. and I project what he can do for an NFL offense and his play speed and how he separates and how he's able to create off the line of scrimmage laterally, his lateral agility, and then press vertical. I don't care if a guy's in his face or a guy's playing 5 yards off the line of scrimmage in man or in zone. I really don't care. I watch the success that he's had. I microscope the player and I project him to an offense and see what he can do and offer a team. Really comparing Tutu Atwell to Tank Dell is extremely disrespectful. I hope people out there understand. Hope I'm making myself clear as I'm saying it with my chest here. Do not get cute on a guy like Tank Dell because he's small. And by the way, he doesn't have one of those smaller, more compact frames as you saw from Tyler Lockett. He's more built like Devontae Smith or Marvin Harrison, where he's got kind of those longer limbs, longer arms. He looks taller than he actually is. And he's not 5'5". He's not 5'7". The guy's like 5'9", 5'10". I get it, the weight, I understand. But again, separation. Just paste it across my forehead right here. Separation is the key.
We'll put it on that blank background back there. Just separation, right behind you, Ryan. We'll just put separation up there. Oh, DP, you ready? You ready, man? You ready? Because the streets are saying the guy that you want to talk about needs to move to tight end. That's what I'm just here to tell y'all what the streets are saying, DP. So I want you to pound the table for this wide receiver / tight end hybrid. Talk about him.
Cut it out. First of all, the streets need to go back in the crib. Whoever's on the street saying that need to go back to their house and take a nap. But my guy, Jonathan Mingo, man, 6'2", 220, 4'4" type of guy. And you turn on the tape, you talked about the size. When people looking for those X receivers, there's not many in this class, but Jonathan Mingo could give you that, right? I grade him as a mid to high 3rd round pick, man. A guy that you bet on the traits and you bet on the size and the physical tools. He played in a kind of a spread, gimmicky kind of offense with Lane Kiffin down at Ole Miss. It didn't run the most technical route tree, but you see the physical ability to do so. The guy that when you stood on the sideline at the Senior Bowl, we were like, wait a second, who is that? Well, we both looked at each other like, is that a tight end? It's like, nah, that's a receiver. And then we saw him move. And it was like, okay, nope, that's definitely a receiver. He's not a tight end. He moves so much better. He can play at the catch point. He blocks well, but that speed, once he gets up to gear, he can pull away from guys, right? So you think about giving him manufactured touches, get him in the quick game if you want. But I think that there's value in the red zone for him. And just as a true X receiver, I think teams that want to get someone that they can develop late day 2, or day 2 period, right? Outside of the 2nd round, 3rd round, I'm taking Jonathan, I'm thinking Mingo, because at the end of the day, I want a guy that has those physical abilities, right? This class has so many carbon copies of movable slot pieces, but when you got a guy, Quentin Johnson's the creme de la creme, top of the class, right? Same size. But after that, who else really stands out with the size? Jonathan Mingo can do that. You just got to be patient and allow him to develop his game and use him the right way. I think you'll be happy with him.
DP, what was interesting is we were there in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, and you come in with guys that you have rated high and you want to see them to succeed, but it felt like every practice Mingo he kept making. We literally looked at each other like, that's a receiver? You see how he's moving, see how he's battling, you see how he's bullying defensive backs. And you, along with only a few other people, I continue to see talk about Jonathan Mingo. So I am excited to see what his actual draft capital ends up becoming and the opportunity that he can get at the next level. Now, Keith Sanchez, listen, the streets like your guy. The streets like your guy a little bit, right? But there are a lot of question marks and concerns. Oh, he's only a slot, not big enough to play on the outside. I want you to pound the table and talk to the people and tell everybody why Zay Flowers is a dude. He is not just relegated to the slot, and he can be a fantastic weapon for any NFL franchise that selects him in April.
Yeah, Ray, so I'm calling out the streets, man, and the rest of the NFL draft community because they kind of like him, right? But listen, man, it's time to be all in on Zay Flowers, man. When you watch this guy, do you want to relegate him to the slot just solely because of his size, right? But when you cut on the film and you realize that the guy actually plays outside, he aligns outside, and he has that dog mentality, man. He's competitive with the football in the air. He's great run after the catch ability. He runs really good routes when defensive backs decide to press him. He has the strength and the leverage because he's not that tall, right? He can power through certain presses and things like that from defensive backs, and he has the speed to stack people vertically. Like, this is a guy that can be a vertical threat on the outside too. So I look at it, you say he's a slot only, but I'm like, why can't he be, a slot and outside? Why can't he be your Z and then also be your slot? So I look at this guy and I'm thinking, hey, I'm thinking of a guy that can be multiple in alignment. And the way that the NFL is now, where you can motion guys and, do so many things with him, he's very rarely going to be in a stagnant place anyway. So, kind of with Zay Flowers, it's time to throw that out anyway. And he's, for me, man, you think about these guys that short area quickness and explosiveness, right? Like your Kadarius Tonys, who I'm predicting is going to have a great year next year with Patrick Mahomes for a full year. Or you think about DP, I told you I was going to steal his name, man. You think about a Percy Harvin, man, when he was, healthy with Seattle and he was healthy with Minnesota, and the impact that he had and all of the different gadget type things that he was able to do. I think Zay Flowers is not only a slot. I think this is another guy that falls into a multiple weapon, right? I think he can attack you multiple ways. So listen, man, I'm all in on Zay Flowers. I have him right now. I think he's wide receiver 3 on my board, but I really like what he provides as a football player. So I think back into the first round, definitely.
So again, I think we're at the moment in time in the draft process where a lot of people have a little fatigue, right? A lot of people are they're finding reasons to not like this player, to dislike that player. And we're waiting for the draft. But as we continue to wait for the draft, what we don't do and what we continue to do is crank out content. Our scouting team, our team at the Draft Network, this is what we do. It's not just a moment in time. It's not just from January to April. We are tapped in year round, day in and day out. So for everybody out there who tapped in for this show live, thank you for being here. Hit that thumbs up button, like and subscribe to the channel, and make sure you are following our scouts, Ryan Fowler, Damian Parson, Keith Sanchez. Brentley Wiseman's not on the show today. He just dropped the mock draft. Make sure you check that out, because we are bringing you draft content every doggone day. So it's the first time we went live, gentlemen. It's been a minute since we've done this. What do y'all think? Good show? You felt good about this one? Nerves out? We're feeling good?
Yeah, we're ready to roll, man. We live, baby.
I know we live. We can just keep going, but we're not. You ain't got to go, but we going to get the heck out of here. Right. So for Ray Garvin, the Draft Network, and our talented scouting department,